Hey everyone, and welcome to, I believe this will be the fifth episode of the JT Jorphy podcast. I have with me today my good friend Connor Foody. We met back in college, and he is a connoisseur of podcasts and all things interesting that can be gleaned from the internet. So Connor, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I'm excited to do this. When I saw you put the notice out on your Instagram stories, I have to do this. I have to be a guest. I'm hoping that you like having me on and that I can be your kind of backup. So basically, anytime my name gets on the docket, it's because somebody better wasn't available. And so I'm setting the low bar for you. And, basically what we can do as kind of the base layer for this is just what all podcasts are really about. And I'll tell you my stats here. So I'm a bona fides. I've got the Malcolm Gladwell level of time put in for the podcast, but
There you go.
it's podcasts are about two or more white guys getting together and just spreading misinformation. Okay, so that's what we're here for. and and the other goals of your podcast are what they are, but that's what we're going to be doing here. Disclaim anything that I say has nothing to do with my family, employer, people that I know outside of this, my neighbors, any future pets or whatever. Full disclaimer, everything I say here is for entertainment purposes only. So,
I like that. I
uh,
think I'm going to use that disclaimer as well for everything I say. Do not trust it. I'm just
yeah,
like
yeah,
you. We're all just fellow
yeah.
humans out there trying to figure things out. So take everything with a very large grain of salt. My goal is that you will actually become such a crowd favorite that you will not be just the backup, but you'll be the most sought after guest on the show over time, and the one that the fans just can't get enough of. That's my goal for you.
Yeah, dare dream, dog. All right, so you asked for my podcast bona fides. So I've been listening to podcasts since like the early 20s. And one thing that I did a couple of years ago that has really hockey sticked my ability to intake podcasts is increasing the speed at which I listen to podcasts. So first I started out like from 1x to 1.2, then to 1.5, uh, blew through 2x, and now
Whoa.
I'm at the 2.5 level. And so to give you some usage stats, let's pick just 2022, 82 days, 11 hours of podcasts. That's 1,800 episodes, apparently,
Wow.
of various podcasts. And this is a mix of comedy, history, finance, and I guess economics, and sports. So those are probably the big five. Last year, 114 days, 13 hours, 2,600 episodes. And and I don't listen, like I listen at work, but I'm not like able to work and then listen to people talking.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I guess maybe I should spend more time with my family, but I
Yeah,
do
I
spend
was
time
gonna
with
say,
my
is it
family. I
is it
promise.
safe to say that you're able to multitask and that you're able to run these things while doing
Yeah.
others? Or yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll probably talk about it, but I guess like when you are a dad in the early stages, your kids don't talk, so like, it's easy to have at least uh one earbud in, but yeah. So
Is it your main source of media? Do you also watch television? Do you also like read through articles, or is it primarily
that's a
listening?
good question. I barely watch any TV outside of the NBA or football these days, so and only professional sports, let's be honest. I know they're paying the players now, but there's a level of competition. I can't tell where my hand is on this because I've got a small view. Anyways, but yeah, so I barely watch any TV at all. I do still play video games because, I'm a fancy person. I would say my news intake, I've gone away from reading long form just because it requires too much. It's hard to take care of your children and then read a long form thing. I would say I'm reading less long form, but definitely Twitter is my number one kind of social media. That's kind of what I'm doing is Twitter and podcasts a lot. Um, but
Nice. Are there any
it's something to
particular?
be proud of, something that I'm proud to admit.
I mean, I support that. The more you're listening to podcasts, I guess the more you're supporting the overall ecosystem, which I hope to become a larger part of over time. So yeah, looking forward to your feedback on my show as it progresses, as it's comparing to your years of experience in listening, are there particular subject matters? You said it's kind of all over the place, history, news, sports, and things like that. Anything that you gravitate to as your favorite subject matter?
Well, I mean, I think we should talk about this on a later episode, but like the sometime in like 2018 or 2019, I realized that I knew nothing about finance or like personal finance, and so that was when I sort of realized, oh, okay, well, there's tons of free podcast content out there because guys are out there trying to sell you things, right? And so if you just choose not to buy the stuff they're selling or the book that they're talking and instead listen to all their opinions and then collate them over time, like if you don't gravitate to one person or whatever, it's a good way to just learn really quickly. And so I would say I've come a long way specifically in personal finance knowledge over the past 5 years, mostly thanks to podcasts. So that we talked about misinformation earlier, but like, I do get something out of it that's a net positive.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's kind of interesting with the whole model of promoting through social media channels, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and the like. You do have to put out real, actionable information to a certain extent just to get people to pay attention to you and to prove that you're not just a BS artist. But you also want to likely monetize and turn it into a business, so you're going to come up with a product that is basically packaging in a more official form the stuff that you're giving out for free anyway. So yeah, like how you put that, you almost just kind of go through all of it over time, filter it down, and just summarize it, and then you've probably recreated what they're selling you anyway. So it's almost their product it's more of a donation to support the cause than required
Yeah,
to
I
get the
mean,
information.
totally. I think I've only paid for one thing from like what I would call the finance Twitter universe. And this one was a very recent thing that is more of an off-camera thing I'll tell you about. But like, yeah, I'm not the customer that gets converted in a lot of these use cases, right? But if you're selling something, the goal is to convert people to a certain extent. It's anything I work in a subscription business now, and so it's all, kind of probabilities and stuff. Probabilities, churn, retention, that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, I got to imagine, depending on the product, if it's more of an informational knowledge product, it's probably more difficult to convert. Whether if it's a material thing that you need to use around a house, or that's going to be some sort of food or supplement or something like that, then maybe it makes some more sense that you actually need to purchase it to get the benefit out
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, like it would be better to come up with the next Scrub Daddy than it would
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
to come up with the next like personal finance training course or something like that.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I do use Scrub Daddy. Not an endorsement, but that thing is pretty good. It's very effective.
Yeah, let's say it into the algorithm a bunch. Just Scrub Daddy, Scrub Daddy, Scrub Daddy, and that
Scrub.
way they'll come advertise with you because they you're such a loyal.
Yeah, I'm actually more of a Scrub Mommy fan that has that sponge on
Mm,
the other half. I find
ooh,
the
okay,
utility to be doubled with that. Soft on the one side, scrubby on the other. All right,
nice.
back to podcasts. Do you have a particular favorite type of format? Obviously, mine is interview style. Some folks are just the one person talking to the microphone. Others are maybe more bantery comedy. What do you gravitate toward?
Yeah, I mean, like the hardest thing to do is one person talking into the mic. I think that from a comedy standpoint, the two people that stand out are Bill Burr and then Tim Dillon, who I think is becoming the muse of our time.
Yeah,
Um, you kind of have to get it with Tim Dillon, but once you understand what's going on, he's really doing incredible work for the country. Um,
nice.
and then I think most everything else I listen to is interview or kind of take driven, right? So yeah, that's a majority of it. I suppose the history podcasts are just one person talking into the mic, but that's more from some sort of prep, and I associate that as being different from the kind of old school talk radio. I'm a single person, and I'm going to cook on the mic for like 30 to 60 minutes minimum
Mhm.
every week. That's a real skill.
Yeah, yeah. I see it as almost like those single people talking into a microphone with like those scripted out. They're basically like professors in a way. They have something they're trying to get across. They structure it out almost like a lecture that you would go to at
Hmm.
school, which definitely has a lot of value. Actually one of my favorite podcasts is Philosophize This by Stephen West, and I learned so much. Like I learned way more philosophy in that guy's podcast than I ever did taking philosophy classes because he broke it down and just made it super simple, super digestible. And yeah, just really valued that information that I got for free. Ended up sending him some Patreon subscription for the episodes, which I think is another
Mm.
cool way to support these people that are kind of giving a service. And it's almost like I said before, on these people that are giving information for free, you like want to support them almost like donation style, by either buying their product or being a patron of their information. So, are you a patron of any folks you contribute monetarily to any of these podcasts?
No, I was thinking, I was like, I think I've given like one-off donations and stuff, but similar to like the personal or like the finance thing, like I'm a freemium user because there's so much free content out there that like the the willingness to pay like towards Patreon um, is not a something I've crossed because I feel like it would be like sports gambling where it's like once you have one Patreon, then why not two? And then you've got five, and then all of a sudden you're like paying $120 a month in Patreon fees, and you're like, this is my biggest single monthly subscription expense. But I do buy merch,
Nice.
and that is something that uh, I think comes from kind of just like my music tastes where like I try and support bands via merch. So like yeah, you'll see me buying merch. Specifically, definitely bought multiple things from Tim Dillon's website to continue that example.
Nice. Maybe a slight pivot on the subject matter will help kind of segue us in there. You are a father. You have
Mm.
two children, correct?
I have two children below the age 4, so I'm basically an expert.
There you go. New dad expert. Did you listen to
Yeah.
any podcasts to get any new father advice? And if so, could you glean out some tidbits for someone like myself who is expecting a child and is going to be a first time dad?
Good question. I mean, if I've not subscribed to any specific parenting podcasts. I would say that there's more like the parenting space is more influencer driven from what I've seen. Like Instagram is the place for like momfluencing and stuff. Like half of you know Utah's disposable income I think is coming from momfluencing.
Utah, you
I'm
said?
not
The
the
state of
expert.
Utah?
Yeah, I'm not the expert though,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
nobody does wholesome family content like Utah. But I would say I've definitely, I think that I have enough to contribute to the parenting podcasting space. And, I think that like some people often talk about like when you're a dad that you're just kind of vestigial, like you're more like the appendix than being actually useful. And I would say that's a bit over dramatic. Like there's no reason for dads to be dramatic. And I think that the more apt kind of mental model, if you will, the thing that you have to think about or try and be like your style is varying degrees of being a role player on a championship team. The best example that I would give is you want to be Shane Battier, okay? And nobody who watches or people who don't watch the NBA are this is going to go over your head. So I'm not going to give a hockey example. I'm not going to give a football example. You could I could probably do a soccer one, but I'm not going to give that one either. I'm going straight NBA. You're going to have to Google Shane Battier highlights, and what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of moxie. You're going to be going to see a lot of defensive effort. Shane Battier runs to the corner, and he waits to get the ball, but when he gets it, he shoots the ball and he makes it. He's crashing the boards. He's defending the team's best player. The opposing team's best player. He's diving for loose balls. He's getting in people's grills. And he's a glue guy. Okay,
He's doing the
that's
hard work,
yeah, the hard work.
the
Not
unsung
not the
hero.
not the hard work that the stars do. The stars they get the accolades because they're what win championships. But the glue guys also have a role here, right? You know,
So
um,
is the baby the star player or is the mother the star player?
the mother is the star player. Um, but also I'm in this analogy the baby is not the basketball too, so like let's all analogies
Have
stretch
limits.
credulity at some point. The
Yeah.
baby is not an object or something that you bounce off the floor, right?
Maybe it's the
That's
coach or the
lesson number
fans.
one. Don't treat babies like basketballs. Yeah.
Noted.
uh Best advice ever. On the little like YouTube vignette for this, it's going to be us with like the weird YouTube face, and then like best parenting advice ever.
I can see it now.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the overarching, like that's the top of the pyramid. Glue guy, Shane Battier. Get that in your mind, okay? And then, like what does that look like across the path of, you know, early fatherhood, right? Because there's a lot that they don't tell you. And, from like point of going into the end of the third trimester, the baby's on the way. You're on notice, right? Like you start to deal with the healthcare system more and more. And, obviously, we know what Italian guys think about healthcare these days, but, for the rest of us, the main thing is that, hospitals are super transactional. You're going to feel like a number, and they are going to talk down to you. Like if you have ever been talked to, like can we curse? Didn't ask before we started.
I might edit it out, but yeah, go for it.
They're going to talk to you like you're an idiot. And so, you don't have to stand for that, right? This is, one thing that is super overwhelming, especially if you're in a high stress environment. If you came to the hospital under duress, not all births are quote unquote planned at the exact moment. You can schedule inductions and stuff. I'm not going to get into that. But under duress, some of these things, they can just kind of try and put you on the conveyor belt towards the baby coming out, right? And a great way to kind of at least help yourself advocate. We had a doula for both of our births, and that's probably advice number one in those early stages, because you have the whole doula skill set. This again going back to being the glue guy. You don't have any of the doula skill set. Mom is the star. You know, the doula is somebody who's on your team who's a contributor to winning that has all the skills you don't have, right? So
It's fine. Can I ask you a quick clarifying question on the doula timing? How early in the pregnancy or late in the pregnancy, like what's a trimester marker for where you need to start engaging, finding
um
one?
I'm trying to think. I think you can kind of start to interview doulas, and there's private organizations. There should be private organizations locally, and then something that's done through your hospital network. And so you can reach out to both of those. And I think that we started looking for people seriously in the second trimester, and had somebody locked in before we kind of, yeah, definitely, like both my babies were born in the same month. Like, yeah, I would say definitely, if you have somebody booked by the second trimester, then you've got enough time to get to know them, make a bunch of plans associated with the birth, and then have them be there for you. And they don't really take that many clients unless you like get a doula as you're walking in. That's kind of a different thing. And so they generally are available for, or like their goal is to be available for you, right?
And you were mentioning, the hospital system. They may treat you like a number, maybe talk down to you. Was there a defense plan that you guys talked about before that? And you can kind of walk through what your thought process was there.
Yeah, the doulas run point on kind of explaining, giving you the rundown of how the major beats of the birthing process, from when you come in to getting the room, which is negotiable, by the way. Like you can't ask for a nicer room. And they tell you all of these small details through to, if it's not your doctor who's on staff, or if you don't like nurses who are there, you can tell them to go away. All of these things that you wouldn't think of if you were just there by yourself. And I'm not going to spoil all of those small details, mostly because I don't remember them all, and I'll look like an idiot. And that's not the goal here, Jason.
Right.
No, but it's like, if you have the doula and you trust them and you work with them on the plan, then you're well ahead of most people who are kind of walking in. I guess like people don't walk in off the street to have babies, but you get it.
I'm sure it's happened.
Yeah.
We actually watched a documentary the other day called The Business of Being Born, and it was talking about kind of
Mm.
these themes and how a lot of women coming in yeah, kind of get put through a system and this protocol. And for the hospital, it seems to be more of like turn the and the beds, like get them in, get them induced, get them out.
Yeah,
Whereas
100%.
a more natural process would take its time and take as much time as it needs to take because it's I'm assuming a very unique experience for every mother giving birth. So in order to make it more standardized, things I guess pitocin, they kept on calling it pit in the documentary, were used, and then it has this cascading effect, and then you need more of a sedative and this, that, and the other, and then next thing you know, there's complications and you need to do a cesarean section, and it
Mm.
seems maybe that happens way more often than it is medically necessary. Did you, not to get too personal, and you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but did that sort of play out, and did you need to address it?
Yeah, so we dealt with that the first time around, and we're a little bit more ready for it the second time around. But you know, we were like they are going to try and funnel you down this. Let's do like it's like they're going to look at their watch and be like, TikTok, you've been here for so long, and if you're going to stay any longer, we recommend that you do X. And then if you're not, if you kind of go along with it, then they're gonna say, TikTok, you've been here for a while, time to induce, which means adding hormones such as pitocin into your IV to kind of get the process of contractions kind of becoming more regular or becoming more intense. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the baby is going to come any faster, right? And so then you can be in this kind of limbo where the body is getting loaded with extra hormones, but the baby's not coming out. And then they're monitoring it, and then they're like, look at this. It's been X hours, and this baby hasn't come out yet. How about we get it out for you? And, that was our experience both times, and we were able to, for the most part, fight it off. But there is a bit of that kind of like, it is the flow. It has that assembly line, that manufacturing or industrial feel to it. And again, that's, I would say, the actual tactics of what make you feel a number are those components.
Right. And when you say fight it off, what does that look like? You just say no, thank you for your suggestion, but no, and just keep on holding your ground. Is that
Yeah, I mean, if the baby truly isn't coming soon, right, you can be like, okay, well, we're going to leave, right? And they're okay, great. And what you will find is that they will, if things are serious, if they deem that they need to keep you, they will kind of, there's a line between when there's actual safety involved and what they prefer, what is easier for them. And they're not going to delineate for you what is a safety concern or just it's 12:30 on a Thursday. I've been on call for 36 hours and I'd like this baby to be out, right? You have the doctors kind of, you know, whether they're doing it purposefully or just out of kind of the natural flow of how they work, you know, they're kind of they're not thinking about you. It is not a customer focused uh, you know, enterprise any longer.
interesting? Did you consider a midwife instead of a doctor approach? Was that something that you looked into?
So home birth or birthing center, right?
So I think with a midwife, you could do a home birth or a birthing center. I think that's primarily where they would
Hmm.
work out of. Yeah, I'm still learning here too.
Yeah, and I mean this is what podcasting is all about. Is
Yeah.
um uh sorry, I don't think so. I think that we were kind of more set on the hospital piece. We're kind of informed enough to get a doula, but then also, yeah, we did not want to go through kind of the birthing center or the midwife thing. Or some people do home births or water births. I'm too squeamish for all that.
Okay.
So I probably would have been like, mm-mm, mm-mm. But yeah.
Fair enough. So maybe fast forwarding to after the birth happened, what was it like being a dad and you and your wife
Yeah,
holding your baby for the first time? Was that like a transformative experience for you on a multi-level, I guess, different aspects of your being?
I would say so. I mean, like it's hard to remember now that I'm multiple years into it, the time before. You wonder what you did before. The amount of time you have now, or that I have now, apparently, except for podcasting time, is feels different. And I think COVID, kind of doesn't help there. But like the first day is mostly magical, and you know, you know, like you've got the name, or speaking from my experience, like you got the name picked out, you name the baby, they do some of the initial stuff, like some initial treatment and stuff, and then the baby's yours, for the most part. The like you kind of almost, this is the point where you're, oh, okay, well, we're through the hard part. The birth, that was intense. All right, now we can take this baby home or whatever, and that can go, a varying, few directions. But even in the first 24 hours, there's stuff that they don't tell you, like you're sleeping at the hospital, which I mean is what it is. But in the first 24 hours, the baby is, they've been in they've been in the womb, they've been in a different environment, and so they cough up all of this stuff. And so if you're not prepared for that, you're sleeping. It's like, some amount of time after, and then you hear cough, 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 a small little creature, going and
Right.
so you immediately get that feeling of there's instinctual things that happen, and one of them is that you'll just bolt awake. You're like, oh my god, is the child alive? Right? That doesn't go away. Just you get used to that, right? And maybe that's me. And definitely am much more. The good stuff is great, but I'm focused on preventing negative stuff, right? And so, is the child alive? Oh my god, okay, child's alive. Okay, all right, go back to what we were doing. And so there's coughing up stuff. The other thing that they don't tell you is feed the child in the first 24 hours to a week. One thing that happens to a lot of parents, including it happens to us, is you bring your, you know, even if you're going to try and only, feed the baby via breastfeeding, you can still supplement with formula. And as milk comes in that first week, like there is, kind of this like liquid gold stage, but like supplementing that and helping the baby not lose weight as soon as they're born is a good way to not get scolded by your pediatrician, is
Yeah.
what I would say.
Okay.
And also, in those first few days, the baby cries a lot because the baby is hungry, right? And they don't really tell you, or like you don't really understand, especially with your first child. Well, the the baby is crying, the baby is hungry. I can feed the baby the free formula that was given to us by the hospital. Even if you're anti-formula or not wanting to feed your baby formula, you can still break glass in case of emergency.
Hmm.
And you know some people do naturally do that, but even in those cases, you can bring your baby. You can suppose that your baby was born 7 pounds or something. If that, like what happens to most parents is the baby's weight will drop like by as much or more of half a pound, in that first week, because nobody's like, okay, your baby's been born, it needs to eat. You should feed your baby this many ounces, this many times per day, or whatever. Like the hospital is like, the baby's been born. Okay, congrats. Here's your stay room. You can stay here 48 hours and then you gotta go. And they don't really tell you like all of it. They give you a brochure, but who reads brochures?
It's like
I mean,
the user manual for the new humans.
yeah, yeah,
Like step
yeah.
one,
They're
open box
yeah,
with baby inside. Step
yeah.
two, you plug in. Charge for 3 hours.
Yeah. If you're dissatisfied with the baby, please don't sue us. Like, so like, there's this component of you know having to figure it out for yourself, which is pretty much all of parenting, right? And like you can then be a little bit more forgiving, I suppose, of your parents if you have, like, depending upon what your relationship is with your parents, but like, of like the figuring it out as you go along piece, like that begins from the beginning, and that's like, welcome to your first feeding, welcome to your first dirty diaper, yada yada, and that just like continues.
Time as the world hits you with things. Yeah, so it seems like yeah, you just mentioned the time before baby. You don't even remember. You probably what did I do with all that free time before I had kids? So how has
Yeah.
that been with juggling, work priorities, life, home, childcare, and all that?
I mean, it's difficult. Like, I would say the thing that cut line for priorities goes higher because children are the top priority, right? And so you'll find out what aside from your children, what your actual priorities are, right? Because it's your stated preference versus revealed preference, and revealed preference is however you're living. And so, to give an example, I don't make enough time to exercise, right? So, my revealed preference is exercise is below the line for the most part. Whereas, and so if you have healthy habits or you don't have healthy habits going into any sort of major thing, having children, the line's going up. And so, we were talking about earlier, like media and stuff. I can't remember the last TV show that I loved, and that's probably because I haven't been watching as much TV in my kind of parenting era, right? And so it's things fall away, whether that's the amount of media you consume or what have you.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, your reveal preference like TV is evidently not important to me because I don't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Would you
100%.
advise on lining up certain priorities in advance or building habits around certain things that would be maybe harder to build after you've had a kid, or that would be helpful coming in?
I think even if you have best intentions of these are my priorities or what have you, it's going to get put to the test. And you have to have kind of open communication channels, obviously with your partner, but you've got to be able to at least zoom out in some cases and like not let the kind of the whirlwind of parenting take everything away. Like you got to make time for yourself or for you and your wife as a couple or what have you. Like there has to be a amount of some boundary effectively reestablishment, or you're probably going to go some amount of crazy, which happens generally because children do drive you crazy, but like in a good way, right?
Kind of like the advice of making sure you still do date nights with your partner, not have the entire of your world revolve around the children. Still maintain your relationship as the two, and then the couple, and then incorporate in the family stuff as needed, but like don't lose that relationship that kind of like brought you guys together. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%. And I think like it's about kind of riding the wave. And there's small things that you can do to make riding the wave a little bit easier. Um, and when it comes to work, like take it from me, take the max leave. Like, I with my first child was, oh, I'm so committed to this current job. This current job's really important. I'm only going to take I took 2 3-week leaves, one uh, in the beginning, post birth, and then one as we were transitioning to daycare. So 6 weeks total. And where I live, it's a little communist, but you can take up to 4 months here. Um, and so missed out a bit. And then with our second, I think I took closer to 10 or 12 weeks. So I'm not using the max. I'm not going full Moscow here, or I guess full Beijing here, but still using a little bit more of what's available because I was reflecting on taking the leave that I took for our second. And I could have just taken the full 4 months. Everything that happens at work matters so little. No offense to workaholic types, but you know comparatively, if you hadn't been there, some other person would have been slotted in to do some version of whatever you were doing, and it would have gotten to some point in the future that would have been pretty similar had you been there. Then they just slot you back in, right? I would say I'm speaking directly to you,
Yeah.
pointing through the camera. Like,
It's
take the
good
max
advice.
leave, spend the max amount of time. Now speaking to myself, like lay off your phone. Like phones have become a bit of a crutch in the post-COVID era. You
Mm-hmm.
know, take as many pictures and videos as you can. Like,
Mm,
um,
good advice.
I'm pretty good at pictures and videos, but I would say that I wish I had more. Um, but I'm sure there's kind of like upper boundary to that if you're trying to use your children as as part of your influencing empire. I would say that's too much
Yeah.
personally, but pictures and videos for you and your family is definitely good,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Don't objectify the child and try to make
Yeah,
them an
yeah, yeah.
influencer.
Like,
But yeah. But save it for the
yeah,
memories. Yeah. And I like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
exactly.
They'll only be
And
a newborn once, and your work will not go away. There will always be work to do. So.
yeah, exactly. And I think the last two pieces are more just like take things on your terms, right? So, accepting help is always wanted, or
Mm,
you should be more accepting than you think of taking help. If you have family in the area, friends, obviously, if you have friends who don't have kids, supervise them before letting them watch your kids. That would definitely be. Uh, don't just let a bro from college come and watch your child. That's a horrible idea. But the but don't try not to say no. But you set boundaries with other people outside of the family, like in terms of helping, is really critical. And you should be blunt. It's your child, and your child, your rules, yada yada. And if anybody is going to be offended, it shouldn't be you. It should be somebody else about you know your kind of approach to things or whatever. And I think the same goes for social media. But my children are on my Instagram account, but I scrubbed my Instagram itself is private, and I scrubbed all the people that I let to follow me to where I'm okay. I've worked with this person. I know this person. I went to college with this person, yada yada. I'm okay with this person knowing that my child exists, right?
Hmm.
So it depending upon your how you treat your social media. If you have a public account, I wouldn't put my kids on a public account,
Right.
that sort of thing. People who put their kids on their Twitter account,
Yeah.
or LinkedIn.
Questionable.
LinkedIn is desperate. Like every time I load LinkedIn, I just see people crying into the void, and I would never, use my children as props on my LinkedIn. But
Yeah.
anyways,
No, that's fair. No, this is actually super helpful, kind of perspective and advice and things to look out for. Definitely really appreciate it. We're getting toward time here, but wanted to give you any last comments or thoughts that you wanted to share before we wrap.
well, I mean, I think we hit our kind of starting standard for misinformation in one episode. I think we can do more. I think we can do better. I think I did okay with not interrupting. I think I moved a lot though. So what I'm going to focus on next time is, and I'm not going to watch this video. I'm going to end with this, which is I'm more than willing to subject people to the sound of my voice. I am not going to subject myself to that. So I apologize. What we should do is run it through some sort of AI so that I can listen to it and improve in that way. But I think I've been fidgeting a lot, so I'll work on that for next time. But we hit our misinformation quotient. We hit what I had on the old pad here,
There you go.
and so I think I think that'll do it. And thank you for having me on. This is fun.
Yeah. Thank you
You
for
should let me
joining.
do this more.
Yeah. No, definitely looking forward to having you back on. I appreciate you taking the time to be a guest. All right.
Awesome, man.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. And Foody, you can stay on. I'm just gonna